Anna Kasparian speaks support for Palestine, and I would say probably is a little more than support. And as you can see here, a friend of the show, Comrade Misty, says, well, shit, here I am agreeing with Anna Kasparian. Who would have thunk? Well said. So she goes on this show. Watch this woman eat Israel's human shield argument in a minute and 20 seconds. So in a minute and 20 seconds, Anna Kasparian talks about the human shield argument that Israel always puts forward. So let's listen right here.
Let me ask you a very direct question. Do you think Israel wants to kill innocent civilians?
I do.
You think Israel genuinely wants to?
I do.
What evidence do you have of that?
The evidence is they are refusing to do special operations and instead are...
Now, this already hasn't aged well in like 2 days for him. What evidence we have that? How about bombing a refugee camp? How about that? Twice. People like this refuse to believe with all the evidence, and like he knows she doesn't have to say this stuff if he looked at it at all. And maybe he hasn't. Maybe that's what these Zionists do. They just go off what other people say in videos, other made up shit like RFK, and they just run with it, and they just say RFK said it without looking it up themselves so that they can avoid really understanding what's happening here.
Are relying on bombing areas where they know civilians are at, and then they'll turn around and say, well, Hamas is using them as human shields.
So if someone was shooting at you, if someone was, you don't have kids, right?
If an armed man grabbed a family member of yours, do you have kids?
No, I don't.
Oh, do you have, okay, your mother, you talked about your mother. If an armed gunman grabbed your mother, had a gun to her head, okay, and he is confronted by the authorities, by law enforcement, and law enforcement, they just decide, you know what? We're not going to negotiate. We're not going to do anything. We're just going to shoot the hell out of both of them. And then they come to you and say, well, your mother, sorry, was a human shield. Would you accept that argument?
That's not the question, though.
Would you?
How is that not the question? How is that not the question? And the thing is, I think she gives Israel more credit than they should have. Because in her example, the person took them specifically hostage, and you're shooting a person while that's not what's happening. They're saying these people over here in their own house, these people over here in the refugee camp is shielding them, and there's no person who from Hamas that's right there. So she's giving them more credit than they deserve. But even with this question, he doesn't have the ability to answer.
And then they come to you and say, well, your mother, sorry, was a human shield. Would you accept that argument?
That's not the question, though.
Would you accept that argument?
You're making up a random story that my mother is held captive.
Hamas using Palestinians as human shields is not a justification to indiscriminately bomb the hell out of that region, knowing full well that the majority of people who are going to end up dying are not Hamas militants who are underground in the tunnels, okay?
That's sort of a mic drop. Because he was almost missing the point. And her example is similar to the example that I have. Like trying to kill one person, killing one of your enemy is not justification for killing 100 people around your enemy. 100 innocent, that's not justification. I'm sorry, however bad you want to get the person, your want to get the person doesn't supersede the lives of the other 100 people. Sorry, it doesn't. So completely agree with Anna here. Let me gonna rewind it back because he's fumbling in his words after the question because it's a great question that illustrates or tears apart the human shield argument and illustrates it forces the person who would answer the question. And I was trying to figure out a way to say this. Forces the person who would answer the question to pick a side of morality. And the reason he's not answering the question, a person who would acknowledge whose answer would be on the wrong side of morality. I'm finding it a hard way of saying it. A person whose answer to her question would be on the wrong side of morality will just attack the question. And that's what he's doing. Oh, that's not even what this is. Because if he were to answer that question, he would be on the wrong side of morality.
As human shields is not a justification to indiscriminately bomb the hell out of that region, knowing full well that the majority of people who are going to end up dying are not Hamas militants who are underground in the tunnels. Okay. It's the innocent civilians who are going to lose their lives.
And that's the point. I mean, I wish somebody would ask Anthony Blinken and ask John Kirby, who give these answers. Like, is that like, give them a question with a number? So, John Kirby, is it the U.S. policy position that it's okay, or they agree that it's okay for Israel to kill 10 Hamas militants in exchange for the 100 innocent Palestinian children that surround them? Is that okay? That's the question. It needs to be put to where the scale of what's happening on the ground is put in front of them and answer that. Because the scale is never answered or never put in front of them. Like, let's take the high estimate. 1,400 is what Israel says was killed. I'm tend to lean what Nick says. I believe that number is inflated, but let's say 1,400. You know how many people was killed? I saw the number 8,000 on the Palestinian side last week. So I know the number's a lot higher. It was before this refugee camp too. So we know the number's a lot higher. How is this? But anyway, kudos to Anna going on these networks. I don't even know who this is. Apparently this person may be a lot bigger than I am. Maybe he's bigger than Anna. I'm assuming at least at Anna's level. She wouldn't go on the channel and see. So she's going on here and making these points to an audience that may not hear these points. And if he's the host, they're definitely not hearing these points that she's making. I do want to hear this last 40 seconds of this again.
Enforcement. And law enforcement, they just decide, you know what? We're not going to negotiate. We're not going to do anything. We're just going to shoot the hell out of both of them. And then they come to you and say, well, your mother, sorry, was a human shield. Would you accept that argument?
That's not the question, though.
Would you accept that argument?
Because what her example is missing is that it's just the one gunman and the mom. How about one gunman, your mom, all your siblings, your uncle, your aunts, all of their relatives, their kids, all your grandparents? Now, would that be okay to kill all of them for that one so-called terrorist?
You're making up a random story that what my mother is held captive.
Hamas using Palestinians as human shields is not a justification to indiscriminately bomb the hell out of that region, knowing full well that the majority of people who are going to end up dying are not Hamas militants who are underground in the tunnels. Okay. It's the innocent civilians who are going to lose their lives.
So again, shout out to Anna for a great pushback, at least in that clip. I haven't watched the entire episode, of course, so I don't know if what else is said